Again, we just, we're in the second signing period, so we were able to add a few more guys here today. I don't know, I guess recruiting never stops. You start looking at next year, we could find some guys late, but we're going to be smart. There's a later period. I think the last 2 weeks of April is a second open period for transfer players if you want to look at that. But, again, our whole thing we got in here, you guys heard us the first time, try to stabilize the team, had the early signing period. I think we signed 7, 8 in that first period, whatever it was. We went through the mid-year period. You guys talked about that. Those guys are here. We've added 8 guys that are here that have gotten classes. Coaches did a really good job. We had people that weren't from here, and within a few days, we had about a week and a half to play with trying to get people here. We had to background check with academics or the type of kid or what's his purpose for transferring, did he fit? And again, you're trying to fit into a school that you're coming into. So really, what is this school where you're coming into a locker room, and what is this locker room you're trying to fit the best you can? At the same time, there's some common characteristics you're looking for. So thought we did. I was proud of those coaches just to flip over some stones and not just find a guy, but try to find. There were some guys that we didn't pursue or didn't follow up with, or maybe didn't get. But sometimes I thought it worked out pretty good. The guys, I've been pleased with those guys. They're here. They're in classes. We've started workouts and all that deal. When we finished that from, I think, the last time, I guess we saw you guys. Did we get together in January? January 11, 12, something like that, maybe? I think after school had started, because we talked with those guys. From there, it was we had a few days that week to see our team work out, which I thought was critical for the new coaching staff, just to see the numbers they had, the players, and all that stuff. So we hit the road running. We had a one-day recruiting period. Coming off the dead period. The dead period is kind of set up for the playoffs, the bowl games, and there's a coaching convention where, you kind of go and professionally try to enhance yourself and meet people and network and all that. We kind of had the coaches here as we finished up the staff and got the staff together. And our coaches were here just to try to get to know the kids. So that's what we did the first week. And from there, we went out recruiting. Had one day. That first day was devoted to the greater metro Tulsa area. It was committed to Okie City just to get some coaches out to see guys, and we found a few guys we wanted to get on, try to connect with some guys we're looking at as walk-on players that are non-scholarship, but to get those guys here. Came back in for recruiting weekend. That first weekend was a lot of the guys that had signed, so we didn't have a lot of new business going on that first weekend, a little bit, but a lot of old business just to meet new coaches. And then we had a 2-week run. So, for example, like last week, I left out last week with our defensive line coaches, and we went and spent a day in Oklahoma and a day in Dallas to see if we liked guys. And we targeted 4, 5, 6 guys, and 1 or 2 we liked, and maybe a couple didn't like us or we didn't thought they fit us, whether it be the player or the person, whatever. We just didn't know if it was a good fit, but we tried to find some. Came back in here Wednesday. We had a midweek visit, had 2 local guys that signed with us. We got them in midweek for a little visit. And then Thursday, Friday, we did the same thing in Houston. We went down and tried to find some guys there to see if they would fit us. So I thought the coaches did a remarkable job of thought we found some, I kept saying, and I don't want this to sound wrong, but shopping the last 2 weeks is like going to the flea market. And you just need to be careful what you buy. Now, there might be some good things over there, but it's buyer beware. You better know what you're getting. And sometimes there's some great buys out there. You just got to make sure. So we were due diligent in taking our time. My dad always shopped at the flea market, so I got no problems with flea markets now. So all the flea market folks, I'm with you now. But, it's just, you need to make sure. And we took our time, and I targeted my time not to get to a lot of schools, but I would go with certain coaches so I could be there with the position coach to see if I thought it was a good fit and the position coach. So I thought we hustled around and didn't venture too far out. I think we took a day into Atlanta to see a couple guys. We went up East Coast one day, but it's really concentrating within the metro area of Tulsa. I thought we hit Oklahoma City and the surrounding towns really, really good in our area. Got down into Dallas, East Texas. We ventured into Arkansas for a couple guys, and we actually got down into Houston a little bit, and I thought the guys did a great job. So we've added, today? I think we've added 9 guys. Is that correct? So the 9 new guys quickly. We added, I think, 3 guys in the D-line. Reese Baller is a tall, thinner prospect. That's a good athlete, going to need some weight. He'll play a hybrid, like DN or linebacker type maybe for us. But like he was at Argyle, Texas. He's coached by Jason Witten down there. Had a chance to see him in his workouts. He's athletic and liked him. Very, very great student, great kid. We had R.J. Jackson out of Choctaw. I thought was a quality guy at the end. We were able to get on and and he had a few options, and really was impressed with his size. He's a great student. He's got a twin sister, I know that, I think that wants to come to school here too, but was intrigued by RJ, thought that was a really good guy at the end to get on. And then Tyler Rich, I talked to Coach Blankenship when I first got here about a couple things. I said, hey, if you got any guys that you think would be good walk-ons or recruits, let us know. And he said, Coach, my D lineman's state runner-up, maybe a little undersized. It's a 6'1"-ish type D lineman, but a good player. And you put his tape on. His tape was as good as the guys that we had signed in the first cycle. So was really excited to get a Tulsa kid and Tyler, and I think he's going to be a really solid inside guy for us. I was impressed to get on him late, and I think with the transfer portal, guys not taking as many, I think he got a little under-recruited. I was pleased with him. Same with Bennett Ringleb, the O-lineman from Union. He's an all-state player. Had a knee injury his sophomore year, so I think going his junior year, missed a lot of the camps and a little under-recruited. Can bend, watching him work. He's got really good upside, great kid. I know Coach Frederick was very excited about him. I was glad we had Bennett, and Bennett actually came in December right when I got here when we actually looked at Grayson, and we took Grayson Tempest from his high school in the first cycle. We didn't offer Bennett until I got the new line coach in place, and Coach Stanchek liked him and had a chance to watch him work out a couple times, and we're excited about Bennett. We had a Casey Carpenter who had committed the first time, didn't want to sign, wanted to meet the new coaches. His dad's the D coordinator, Allen, Texas. Very pleased, impressed with him, so we added 2 linemen. Luke McGarry is a really quality tight end product here late. I think he's a little bit under-recruited. I think he's bigger than 225. I think he was 238 on his visit. Big, broad-shouldered, was an all-state defensive player at Prestonwood Christian in Plano, Texas. Really excited about Luke. Who else we have? Then our couple linebackers. It says C.J. Turner's a DB. He's actually a linebacker out of Star City. And Elijah Wilson. Elijah was committed in the first signing, did not want to sign. He's out of Duncanville State Championship team. Elijah's grandfather is Chris Wilson, that played at Oklahoma and actually coached with me years ago. And so I had a chance to connect with Chris, which is pretty cool. And C.J. Turner is one of the first times I've ever had a media guy get something right. Dave Sittler sent me a text and said, there's a guy in Star City that was committed to Colorado. So I just followed him. Sent him a direct message on Twitter. He hit me back. We looked his tape. We got it going. He committed to us a couple weeks ago, got it tight. But actually, I saw Dave actually did his own little Twitter deal, but shot me a text. But that was a Sittler recommendation for what it's worth. So if you guys don't think we do, listen, we don't necessarily like what you guys put out all the time, but we do. We do. Any coach that says he doesn't read the papers is lying. So anyway, so I was excited to get CJ. So 2 linebackers in this class. And then Cam Crooks, didn't mention Cam. Cam's an athlete out of Cushing. Got on him here last month. I think he's the state powerlifting champ at 180, 2-time state 300-meter hurdle champion. I think he had 9 punt returns for touchdown, about 1,400 yards receiving. He's got the skill set to play a couple places on both sides of the ball and will be a great special team player and another outstanding student. So I think we got on some guys late pretty good. We did lose a couple that we wanted. It was interesting. We got on a couple guys, and after we offered, all of a sudden our Big 12 partners in the state offered them. They had all year. I don't know where they were till last week, but all of a sudden they popped. And I remember my time when I coached at one of the schools down there in Norman for a long time, and typically maybe I'd lose a guy to Texas or A&M. I remember battling Tulsa for guys. So I was proud of our guys for bowing up and going after some good recruits. We didn't get them all, but we got some good ads right there. We competed hard for some good players, and I think these are going to be good kids, that fit our community here. So that's an overview of the class. So if that's good, we'll rock and roll for the questions. Get out of here.
Coach, overall, like there's a bunch of Oklahoma prospects, across the state, transfers, and, the whole signing day period. How do you feel about building a team around a bunch of Oklahoma guys?
Yeah, I think, one, we should, because, you need to recruit in your backyard, but you got to be careful just because they're from Oklahoma. Sometimes there might be a player that's really good that maybe you just don't have a space for based on your numbers. The next year you might have a space for him. I was asked when going through the process of the job, how do you help attendance? And I said, well, it'd be nice to have some local players, but you help attendance by winning. So if we have local players, we don't play good, no one's coming to our game, so we need to play well. So to me, we want to start here. I think our degree is well known nationwide, but particularly has strong value in this region. And if you're a kid from this region and you feel connected up to into the Northeast Oklahoma area or Okie City and Tulsa per se, and you're looking at a lot of the jobs, the way these two cities are growing, as some of the country is shrinking, these two cities are growing, they're vibrant. I think our degrees got some clout. I think we're going to play some great football. We've put in a good staff. I think we're a good sell, and we just tried to sell it to those guys, and we'll continue to sell it locally, but we're not going to overdo it. You can do too much, you can do too little, so we're just going to try to find the best guys. I do think we're better served to be within our region, and as we travel around to the other great football parts of the country, we're just smart about how we do that.
How much of this recruiting cycle has been about, making those relationships with high school coaches and being out and being active in the region?
Yeah, I mean, we we tried. For example, like the first week I went to as many of the top schools as I could the first Friday, but then the second Friday I tried to hit the ones I didn't get the first Friday. And then the Wednesday I was back in town for visits last week. I hit 3 or 4 while they were going around looking at the library and academics. I went to see some more local guys because we were here. But then after I went through, Coach Spurrier was back through, and Coach Stanchek was back through, and Coach Fry was back through, Coach Switzer was back through. So as we were in and out, like, hey, Michael Hunter was shooting over. His family still lives in Stillwater. And I'm like, hey, on Saturday, hey, there's a basketball game 20 miles from me. There's a nice sophomore at that game. Go check him out. So it wasn't hard to do. So we just tried to, when we were here and the calendar cooperated, we tried to get into as many as we could and tried to be there as much as we could. Just those kids, it's one thing to say you're going to recruit it. It's one thing to make a call or drive by. We were just trying to back it up by being there again. Matter of fact, last week, I actually missed a guy. When I went to see him, he wasn't at school. And I had our tight end coach last week go back to see a guy. And we actually saw him and picked up our recruiting after we saw him significantly. Just because my gut said, hey, I missed this kid. He wasn't in school that day. He was at a school function. He wasn't there. And my gut said, told the coach, hey, next week, hey, on Friday, if you can, go by that school. We need to check on this kid. So we tried to have our presence as best we could. But at the same time, we went to a couple of those Dallas schools a couple times. Coy McFarland's from East Texas. He was hitting those schools, top schools, and getting in as best we could. So, recruiting is relationships. So we're going to keep working as hard as we can.
As a head coach who's been through this before, how important is your first signing class for the foundation of your program?
Well, yeah, I guess important. They're all important. Where I was coming from, and I shared with our staff that, like, you were football coaches, but our number one job is recruiting. And you say we're at Tulsa and you have limitations, but our number one job is recruiting because we need to build relationships and recruit the best players we can that fit here and can be successful. So job number one is to recruit. Then job number two is once you got them, start getting to know them, connect, and develop. So every year recruiting is going to be big. This first class, you got to be careful in the first class, like I say, that you don't make rush decisions. I was with a coach last Thursday and going back and forth with our coaches. Hey, watch this tape again. Should we visit him or not? Let's look. Let me see the trend. Just does he fit? What do we think? And just I ask everybody, give me your opinion. You guys watch this tape or via the cell phone. Watch the tape. Tell me what you think. I'm not sure. What do you think? Give me. We're a group. I was trying to get group opinions. So I think the first class is critical. It's hard to have a great first class because recruiting is best with relationships, and our relationships were short. But I thought. Who's coming today and say our class stinks? No one says that, right? They're ours now, right? But I thought we worked hard and done it long enough to try to trust your gut. I'm sure we made a mistake or two, but I feel I really like the first guys we held on to that were here, schools honoring scholarships. Those mid-year guys, watching them, feel really great about where they're starting, and I do like the kids we've added. So.
You mentioned taking some of these trips with some of the assistant coaches and stuff. What does the recruiting process do in terms of helping create and form these bonds that you have with your new assistants and this new staff?
Meaning?
Just getting to know the guys, hey, here's what we're wanting to do, all that.
Our coaches?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you brought the coaches in there, a couple of times the guys said, for the most part, I knew a lot of them already. Like, Ryan Stanchek that worked for me, Greg Fry had worked for me. Michael Hunter played for me. I was with Coy McFarland last year. I was with Matt Guerreri last year. Ricky Brown I'd worked with. Ronnie Burton and I were teammates. The only one I didn't know was Switzer, to tell you the truth. Who else we got here? Me and Coach Spurrier go back to being in Oklahoma years ago. We actually vacationed at the same spot, so our kids are pretty tight, for what that's worth. So really, Switz was the only one I didn't really know. And, he is related distantly to Barry, so a Switzer in Oklahoma can't hurt now. But also, I got on him through Brian Hartline. I say, Hart, man, I'm going back and forth, different guys, got a couple thoughts. Who you think? He said, hey, this guy that played, he goes, I like him. It's something about him. Now, he's starting out, but I think he sets up for good. And I'm a Carolina alum, so I knew him as a player, knew he was a great player. Played for Seth Luttrell, who worked for me, and I'm good friends with Seth, thought the world of him. So, in part, all we were able to do is when we were riding together, it was just really just talking about these kids, so these kids fit. And like, for example, Ricky Brown, Ron Burton, and myself, all three showed up to see a D lineman, let's talk to you. And we tried to catch him because we're in Dallas at some athletic periods. On Monday, we were in Choctaw, seeing a kid in Choctaw. And on Wednesday, he was on campus. That was last week. And so, it was all hands on deck, and those guys did a good job. But, for the most part, I feel we got a good crowd. We got some old guys that got some experience, and I think we got some dynamite young coaches.
Obviously, you like all the freshmen you have coming in, or you wouldn't brought them in, but are there some guys that you expect could as a freshman, make an impact on the field in their first year?
I don't know. You can play up to 4 games and still redshirt guys. The hardest thing when you talk, I've had this conversation with several of our recruits saying, like, look, we're a developmental sport. You're a developmental player. We're a developmental program. The worst thing about developing a freshman, typically if you're redshirted, you're the equivalent of a high school 8th grader. So you guys cover the local teams. How many 8th graders are walking out at Jinx and playing a game on Friday night? How many 9th graders won't walk out at Owasso or BA or Union play or Bixby on Friday night? How many 9th graders? How many 10th graders walk out there? And those guys who walk out 10th graders, they end up being real dudes. Most guys don't play. Now, fortunately for those teams, they have 8th grade teams, freshman teams, and JV teams. We don't. So we have guys that sometimes develop 1 and 2 years and don't maybe play in the games like you want to. And it becomes frustrating, becomes challenging, becomes difficult to motivate those guys. So you like to play them a little bit because it's kind of gives them a little juice. When we were doing that little workout early this morning, there's a reason why you're doing it. It's the first time we did it. It was kind of a little old-fashioned mat drill, little. I think Chris Nero, our trainer, said this is organized chaos, which is what football is. And, and that was the gist of what we did this morning. So when you don't play, it's tough. So you'd like to play them, but we didn't promise anybody they'd play. I don't know the players we got that can play. Matter of fact, I actually saw a couple guys. I saw some high school guys do more work at their workouts than I've seen our guys do. So now that we're here, we're getting to know our guys a little bit more. So, and so anyway, we'll, hopefully some of those guys will play and we'll be smart, and we're not trying to redshirt everyone. And I think it's nice to play guys, and they play in a 4-year period, but you have injuries. But maybe I'd like to think a lot of them will play, but time will tell.
Now, for you personally, the last couple of months, I'm sure been a whirlwind, hiring the staff, recruiting, your Ohio State responsibilities. Do you get a chance to take a breath now that recruiting's over, or is it just on to the next thing?
It's it really as we got on the road traveling, it really wasn't that. Matter of fact, when you talk about the recruiting, I actually did the recruiting for a day and 2 weeks, and I only had to make 1 flight. So my car dealer's gonna be mad because I kept rolling his car around a little bit more. So you got to try. I put some miles on his car for a bit. It was good work. So that travel's actually pretty good. You kind of get, and I actually like traveling. I've always didn't mind driving by myself and a little time just with you, whether you put the radio on or not, or make some phone calls, whatever. So during the recruiting, we zeroed in on some guys. We were moving around, but it wasn't hectic, crazy travel. It was regional. I think we're able to slow down. And now that we're here, we've been here this week, and now with these couple snow days, we're actually just trying to bring our players in, keep meeting them, keep knowing them. I think we're off to a great start. I thought what we did in the wintertime, getting to meet them, the way we started that first week, I like the way the workouts are off to. So I think we're off to a great start, and I think we've had a time to, it's pretty. Quite honestly, it's pretty calm.
Any other questions?
Anything else? We got one? You guys always this chipper.
We try to be. Out of all the signings, let's go back to mid-September and the December signings. Out of those groups, which one do you think is going to have the most immediate impact? Is it the transfer guys?
Well, you would think transfer just because they're older and they're coming from programs where they've lifted and trained. But the thing we did in December when I was here, we had those 2 weeks or those 2 4-day periods where I was here with the team and I was talking with all the coaches and young coaches. I really didn't watch videotape. Matter of fact, our videotape got wiped off the computer system. Somebody took it off for some reason. But I really just like tried to get to know the team, and I was told we have positions that, hey, maybe we need another body or two at linebacker. Maybe we need a couple more players in the secondary, and so those positions were targeted a little bit just based on talking to the players, meeting the players, listening to coaches, because and so I would think opportunity swings their way. But some of these high school kids, I mean, like Tyler Rich is a mature, strong. He won't, our numbers won't be deep there. Kids, Cam Crooks can run. Grayson Tempest can run. Those are fast guys. So they're not here now, but we recruited a few receivers. So I don't know. I mean, you would say the portal guys maybe, but again, no one's been promised anything. We're going to earn it. We'll see how it goes. And like I say, it's 24 guys. I think for the most part that we think fits our school. We like some skill set. We got some development to do, but for short notice, I'm proud of our staff. They humped it really good, and we had a lot of group talks and video and bottom line. So here's how we recruit him. It's just recruiting human nature. I like the guys I recruit. Well, it's not the guys I recruit. You got to see the big picture. So I try to get everyone to what happens when you go see someone, you gravitate to that's your girlfriend. Well, let's look at the whole pool. I thought our coaches did a good job of not being selfish of just like who was the best guy and why, not based on where he was from. So if that makes sense. So even though we took the local guys, the coaches were on board. Like we didn't offer some local guys till the coaches got here because I wanted the coaches to like them, if that makes sense. And so I thought, telling you, that staff did in 3 weeks. They did a kick job. They got after it. It was really good.
I wanted to ask about Reeves. 6'6", 215 was his frame, and talked about the weight, but he's still pretty raw, right? Because he hasn't played football for very long. But how much of his wrestling background did you see through the process here that's helped him get to this stage?
Well, he's a basketball body that's wrestled, so he's got a little bit more, quote, because he's built like his dad played basketball at Baylor. So he's a taller, angular guy that's got, and to me, he's one of those guys. Now, his change direction speed, his toughness from wrestling, his competitive spirit shows. He's going to need some weight to anchor down and some strength, and he might need a year or two of good weight work as he grows. But we took a chance on him because of his length, his speed, and his upside. But again, he's one of those guys like a lot of us. We got some upside to go, but he's one of those guys 3 or 4 years from now is like, okay, why is he here? He's potentially one of those guys, but he's got work to do to be that kind of guy, so we'll see.
We talked already about recruiting locally some. I've seen some feedback or heard some feedback. Even one local coach tweeted out he's happy to see Tulsa recruiting Tulsa again. What kind of feedback have you gotten from coaches and fans, local high schools, about that?
For the coaches, they were all receptive, seemed good. Of course, some of them I knew from years past and back, and I just went in like it meant a lot for me when Coach Frederick brought the guys there and said, Coach, I believe this guy's pretty good. And even though I didn't offer one for a while, I still hey, no, his coach says he's pretty good. His coach has had a lot of good players. So it was nice to connect with those guys. There's a lot of, but we got some of the very best coaches and programs in the nation are in this area county. They can stack up with anyone. And there's a lot of great football areas. And some in the areas of Texas we recruit, but those schools. But like I told the staff, and I listen, once in a while there's a dude at Kingfisher. And there'll be some guy down at Idabel or someone there'll be a kid at Weatherford. There'll be a kid at Clinton. There's going to be kids. There's good football in this state that's not always at the power programs. You got the 4 or 5 power programs. You got population with Edmond, the Norman schools, and the Oak City schools, Mustang, and Putnam cities, and all those, Millwoods. You got a lot of good football. But within the state, those county seats, basically every county's got that one town. and whether it be Anadarko or Shakota, there's going to be somebody somewhere at those schools, and if you do your job, you can find some tough, raw bone, fast guys that can play our game. So that was the sell to our coaches: cover the backyard. The backyard will be the hardest area for us to recruit because it'll get over recruited. Because everybody's going to go to Bixby, everybody's going to go to Jinx, everybody's going to go to those schools, and so just because we're close, that's going to be a fist fight at those schools sometimes. But within our state, there's great football, and within that Dallas, East Texas area, there's great football. And we're going to keep hitting it.
For more information, you can visit tulsaworld.com.